Welcome to Ask Earl Anything. This is the show where your questions get answered. If I don't have questions, I do not have a show. This is February 14th. This is my Valentine's Day edition of Ask Earl Anything. I have a whole bunch of questions today, and a lot of good questions from a lot of good friends, and some not so much friends, but they're going to be new friends, and a couple shout outs to start the day. So let me start with the shout outs. And hopefully this will be a shorter Ask Earl Anything than the last time. So a couple shout outs. I'm not going to shout out the Drumatic, Eric. I guess I kind of did. Sorry about that. That's 3 weeks in a row now. First shout out, and I'm going to shout out to a couple pro level guys that work with pro level guys or are pro level guys who you need to check out. And then we'll deal from there. So the first one is John DeChristopher. If you do not know John DeChristopher's name, John DeChristopher worked for the Zildjian Company a long time ago. I think he's been away from that company for a while now. He's been in the business 30 plus years. I think he worked for Simmons, maybe DW early on, Zildjian, Vic Firth, and I'm not sure what else. That doesn't matter. Check his YouTube channel out because he's interviewing famous drummers. And some of the famous drummers he's interviewed during the COVID time: Rick Marotta, Steve Gadd, Danny Serafin, Stan Lynch from the Heartbreakers, Dave Matax, the famous UK drummer, lives in the United States now, session drummer, and Steve Smith, and a whole host of other guys that he interviews. So give him a shout out. If you check him out and you watch one of his interviews, say, hey man, Earl Bennett told me about you. So, nice pass from my channel. He does answer questions. He's really cool, and I told him I would promote it. So, I'm doing what I said I would do, John. All right, my next one goes to Kirky B. Kurt Biscara. Kirky B is under. Kurt Biscara is a session drummer from LA. He's another guy late to YouTube, but he is a famous session drummer. He's also worked with The Time, Boss Skaggs, Elton John, Mick Jagger. He's recorded on Bonnie Raitt's album, all kinds of people's albums. He's a session drummer. He's a famous session drummer. He's got a DVD out. I like it. Watched it. I own it. He's one of those LA guys. Jeff Porcaro kind of started throwing him work before Jeff died. He actually had him play on Boss Skaggs' album that Jeff was producing. So Kirky B is doing some things called Drum Hacks and Espresso. If you get a chance, check out his channel. Subscribe to him, and if you do, tell him you heard it from me. Maybe one day I'll get to interview him. That would be wonderful. Another pro-level guy that you will learn a lot from, has a lot of content. These two guys, John DeChristopher is getting some content with all the interviews and stuff. But Kirky B's got a lot less content. Another guy, Blair Cinta, another session drummer from LA, who's got online lessons. So does Kirky B do online lessons, by the way. I'm not getting paid for any of this stuff. I'm just giving you some information. But Blair Cinta is a guy who does a lot of online recording for people. He's done a lot of sessions in LA. He's played with Josh Groban. He's got his own home studio set up. He does a lot of lessons on how to be a recording engineer, how to record drums. There's a lot of stuff to learn from Blair if you go check his channel out. He does live streams periodically, has great topics. He's got a website called Sticks and Wires. Check him out. And the last shout out is a new friend, kind of. We're going back and forth on Instagram and a little bit on YouTube. Many of you know of him. It's George Flutis, which is Bonhamology. Bonhamology it goes by. And I think he just hit 10,000 subscribers the other day. Bonhamology is another one of Terry Keating's friends, George Flutis. He's got a lot of giant beat cymbals. He knows everything about John Bonham. But George knows more than John Bonham, trust me. If you watch him play, he plays jazz like you can't believe. He's a Chicago drummer, been out there for a long time. He's a great drummer, amazing drummer. Check out his channel too. So I wanted to shout out to some guys that I watch for inspiration, and these are guys I watch for inspiration. All right, My first question comes from Spiro Drums. Now, Spiro, I dedicate that little beginning I just did on the drums to you. I've been working on it. Spiro has asked me to play a compilation solo thing with him. I just sent him some, I'm actually going to be sending him the video after this. I actually just uploaded it to YouTube. It's not perfect, Spiro. I wish it was. I'd have to spend about 10, 15, 20 hours on it to get it to where I want it to be. But I think I got that basic melody. The B section is really the issue right there. So having issues with the B section. Spiro asks me a question. He says, let's see, no hating here, I love it. This was on Jeff Porcaro's Calling Elvis. You have grown your hair down to your shoulders now. I don't know what that meant, but I guess he was looking at something he saw there. The China sounds beautiful in the video. Calling Elvis, if you guys didn't check out Calling Elvis is a famous Dire Straits song that Jeff Porcaro played on. And a lot of guys that are Jeff guys know Calling Elvis. Now, Calling Elvis is impossible to duplicate because Jeff played amazing overdubs on top of his train groove. But I did try and gave my best shot at Calling Elvis, okay? And it was tough, and I gave it my best shot. It took me a couple passes to really get it right where I wanted it. I have two versions of it that I could share, and I've shared a few pieces of on Instagram. Both have their kind of cool things to them. But the one I placed on YouTube is the final version. And that's the video where I'm playing brushes, the whole train beat one pass, and then I'm playing over top of it the other Jeff stuff. And then I did my own thing, inspired by what I heard. By the way, that's how I like to do drum covers. I like to do drum covers where I'm trying to be as true to it as possible, but eventually it becomes a little bit of me. This is one of those, nobody's going to get this. No one's going to get all those hits. Matter of fact, I've seen a couple guys do Calling Elvis, and they get the first part really close, if not exact, a couple of them. But when it comes to the ending part, they don't even give it a try. They kind of fade out, you know, and they say enough. So I got to tell you, if you want to see guys that are doing the first part almost perfect, or their interpretation, and I think it's their interpretation because they're doing a lot of 16th notes on the hi-hat. And I'm not so sure he did as many as I saw a couple guys do, but their interpretation, making the group happen. There's a couple really great players out there doing Calling Elvis. You got to be a crazy person to put something. It's in Jeff Porcaro world. I guess that's as crazy as I can get. It's like almost like trying to do a Rush song. You know, if you don't do it exactly like Rush, it's like you're gonna get some haters probably. Even though I haven't got any haters on this, thank God. It's been good. But Spiro was watching this and he said, "I noticed you have this washboard in the studio." This is the washboard. He said, "Have you ever used it for anything?" He said he wanted to get one. Matter of fact, he said, "Washboard in your studio always catches my eye. I need to get one so I can cover the Baby Dodd song I like. I'll have you record a cover with the washboard." I don't know what he's talking about. I am not a washboard player. So don't ask me to play washboard, Spiro. Matter of fact, I was goofing a little groove. I might put it on the back end. Me doing something with sticks. Anyhow, it's kind of something my wife bought for doing wash when our washer broke. And I thought, well, I'll just throw it in the studio. Michael Perry notices it too. A lot of guys notice it. So you're not the only guy that's noticed it. Thanks for the question, though, or kind of like asking me if I've ever recorded it. I have not. Next one comes from Dan Hoyland. He asks a question. What snare drum are you using and how do you get it to sound so bassy in tune, but also still have a good stick rebound? Looks like it looks here. This was on the cover Ventura Highway, and I believe the drum on Ventura Highway was my DMR 6.5 by 14 cast aluminum drum. So just the depth of a 6.5 by 14 adds a little girth and a little depth to it, but I didn't find it to be particularly low pitched because I have other drums that are way low pitched drums. I have an 8 by 14 Ludwig Black Magic drum that's very tuned down. I got a 7x14 solid walnut DMR drum that's tuned way down. So that's kind of a middle tuning, but I think what you heard me pulling out the bottom was probably in the EQ. The drum isn't particularly bottomy, but it has some girth to it. So if you got that kind of depth, a lot of times you'll get a little bit more bassy tones out of it. It has to do with EQing. And if you want to learn how to EQ, the bottom of this video, in the description, is my 5 videos on how I make a drum cover, and I cover EQing. I also did a question on snare drum EQ for Ask Earl Anything, a short one, back in December, I believe. Adam asked me that question, AR drummer. So check those out. That will give you a better understanding how I get the sounds I get. I use an SM57, usually one microphone on top on both kits, be it the Studio B kit or the Studio A kit. So, but I think it had to do more with the way I use the EQs. And in that video, I actually talk about the Pultec EQ and how I utilize that to kind of, it's a great EQ. It's a universal audio one. So you might want to check it out. That might give you a little bit more of a picture, Dan. Thanks for asking that question. I got another question. This is from Eric at the Drumatic. He said, what a nice groove. This was She's Gone by Hall & Oates. Love the feeling, love it. I've noticed you play the stick backwards, or lack of a better word, in your left hand. I've seen other players do this as well. What led you to that choice? This is a topic that comes up often, Eric, so thank you for asking it again. When I first started doing gigs, I wanted a snare to sound a certain way, and I realized that playing it this way, I wasn't getting that beefy sound. This just seemed beefier. I also realized that I could do whatever groove I'm doing. I can go back and forth from the rim click to the snare drum without flipping it over. Because a lot of guys, they do the rim clicks with this side, and they always sounds a little wimpy to me. It's not my sound. I like it a little meatier, so I have to move the stick up further to get it meatier. So for me, it was just kind of like I'm doing a lot of gigs where I'm doing rim clicks, I'm doing a lot of bossa novas. I played a lot of weddings early on, and it was just became an ease thing for me. So it was a sound thing and an ease thing. And then over time, it became a habit. And now 45 years later, I play most of the time this way, and I feel comfortable doing it. Now, I don't know if that helps me with my rolls and other things. I'm not sure. But I do doubles with this okay. I just hate practicing on the pad this way. On a pad, I always want to flip it over. So I'm getting my left hand still not getting the weighting it normally is. So that's my problem. I'm practicing on a pad. But I don't practice on pads all that often, to be honest. I'll just hit one once in a while just to loosen up. But I should probably loosen up a lot. One of the things that happens when you get older is your body starts doing weird things. I've got now shoulder aches. I've got knee pains. Some weekends when I play drum covers, and as you all know, I do 5, 6, 7 drum covers in a weekend. I usually go like 8 in the morning to 5 at night, for a couple nights. I don't know. The next week, my arm is like hurting now. So I got a new thing. I'm not sure what I'm doing to my arm now with my left hand. Occasionally get in my right hand, my right arm, left arm, right arm. Anyhow, all that to say is, I don't know if that helps me playing it backwards. Probably not. It's become a habit. It's become my sound. It's how I get my sound out of a drum, on a snare drum, and I feel comfortable doing it, so I play that way. And I play that way even if I'm playing light jazz. You'll see me play very light. I don't have to play really hard to play this way. I just have to play. All I have to do is play, and I flip it around. And I do it everywhere. When I'm trying to play really quiet, I'm still using the back end of the stick. So it has now become a habit. It's a choice, and it's a habit. So it's very hard to break that habit. I wish I hadn't started it in some respects, but guys like Hal Blaine, Steve Gadd. There's a bazillion guys that do it. And when you ask them why they do it, it's usually, when I see Gadd playing this way, and he does this often, but his sticks are pretty light. I have a couple pairs of his sticks in here. He's doing it to get that beefy backbeat sound, you know? Maybe it's making up for his technique and getting the sound. I don't know. Steve's actually a light player from what I understand. I have a friend who's a drum tech for him, has done some drum teching for him and told me how light he plays. So Steve doesn't really play that hard. Of course, he's older now. But I think when he was younger, he didn't play as hard as you think. He pulls the sound out of the drum. I think a lot of how we get the sound has to do with pulling the sound out versus pushing in. Same thing with bass drums. Putting the beater in, you deaden, where you just tap it and you hit it, it gets the more poofy, big sound. So a lot of times it's about pulling the sound out. Now I use all those techniques. I play in, pull it out. Depends on what the sound I'm trying to get. And usually what dictates how I play has to do with the sound I'm trying to get. I am extremely aware of the sound I'm getting. When I'm listening to music, I'm aware of the sound I'm getting. I'm aware of how I'm locked with the music. And this does not matter, excuse me, if I'm on a bandstand or if I'm playing to some of these drumless tracks. I am very aware of how I sound in the music. So when I play at church with other musicians, if somebody does something, I adjust my playing to them sometimes. I don't throw the band out of whack, but sometimes if the bass player's not laying it in like the record, I'm going to change my foot pattern to kind of help them out. You know what I mean? If they're simplifying, I may simplify my pattern. Things that have to be there to make everybody feel comfortable, like I'll lock in with a guitar player, and if he's doing a certain strum and I make that tribal thing work a certain way, I'll make it work. It may not be the way the guy on the record played it, because their players may have been playing a little different. So a lot about making music is how you're playing with the musicians you're with and what you're hearing. It's not always just playing the part. It's reacting how you... I guess it's from playing live a lot. I played a lot of live gigs. Matter of fact, most of my playing is not on YouTube. Most of my playing is in the real world with real musicians. And I've had years of playing, 45 years of playing with people. So for me, it's about adjusting my playing to keep the band solid and making everybody comfortable while listening to the other musicians on stage. So when I play with drumless tracks and I remove the drummer, guess what? I don't have to listen to what the other drummer played. I can listen to what the bass player is doing. And that makes me play differently. And I love that aspect of drumless tracks because that allows me to have a little bit of me and me locking in. And that's why some guys say, man, you were really in the track. Yeah, I am really in the track. That's what I'm doing. I'm putting myself in the track. Now, there are certain songs I can't pull the drummer out for some reason while I'm recording it, be it the click or whatever, or the tempo moves too much and it's not locking. In those scenarios, I probably sound a lot more like the drummer. I'm trying to make more of the hits. But a lot of times when I'm using drumless tracks, I remove the drums and I just lock in with the band and where I feel it. And now I'm hearing different things. So that's what playing live is. Playing live is adjusting to the musicians you're playing with. And if you're a drummer, it's adjusting your sound to the musicians you're playing with. And your sound comes out of how you pull the sound out of the drum, how you attack the cymbals, how you attack the snare drum, how you attack the bass drum, how your drums are tuned. All those things are a factor in that. So I think I totally went off on that one, Eric, but thanks for the question. Great question. I'm going to save that one, come back to it. All right, my next question is from Ready Yeti. He said, thanks for the video. This was on, I think, an Ask Earl. You have a good channel, a variety of videos. It's educational, thoughtful, personal, instructive, equipment, various music genres. Let's get to the question. The question is, how do you approach drumming covers? How do you strive to get drumming as exact as you can to the original recording? Or do you add a bit of your own flair? For example, the intent. Are you trying to getting the fills and crashes on the right spots of the original? So, Ready Yeti, thank you for the question. I was basically answering your question at the end of the last question I said for Eric. I try to play homage to the drummer I'm playing to. I've done a bunch of, like, be it Calling Elvis or the Steely Dan Home at Last. I mean, when I was doing Home at Last, I was trying to get the Bennett thing. Like, that little upbeat thing he was doing on the hi-hat, I was trying to do Bennett. So I do try to pay homage to the drummers that played on the albums and on the songs. But I'm not going to get it exact, and I don't care to get it exact. That kind of time spent on a drum cover is not fun for me. What's fun for me is making it feel right. And if it feels right, that's usually when I release it. If I can get it to sound and feel right, it's even better. And doing it in one take, that's the whole other thing. I put the best take up. Sometimes it's not perfect. Sometimes I realize I'm not going to be able to spend enough time on this song to get it perfect. But I will give it my best shot. And most of the stuff, when I'm doing like the Motown stuff, you know, I've been doing a lot of Motown and Sound of Philadelphia stuff, Spinners. Those songs are just fun songs to play, and they're played in such a way you want to lock into the groove and try to be as true to the original as you possibly can. So I try, but where I can veer off, I veer off, and I put me in it, and I do think I'm locking in with the band on these tracks. That's what I try to do. But playing exact is not my thing. There are guys that like to play exact, and they, you know, my friend Matthew at CCM Drummer, he is a stickler for this. He actually doesn't want me to call my drum covers because they're not a drum cover unless they're exact. I don't live in that world. I think whenever you're playing a song that's not your own, it's a cover. And if it's a song that's not your own, it's a cover. You're doing your best to play it like best you can. Like, I've played in a lot of cover bands and had to cover a lot of music other artists play, and it's never played exact. It's just not. You get a band together, they may try to play it as exact as they possibly can, but it will never be exact to the record. It won't. And guys will put their thing on it. And that's what makes those guys them. And for me, I think after 45 years, if I've not created how I play and not being apologetic for how I play, because truthfully, when you've played as long as I've played and you've done as different styles of music as I've done, you start to develop your own style. You study a lot of different players. So you hear Jeff Porcaro, you hear Steve Gadd in my licks, you hear Rick Marotta, you hear John Hammond from Nashville, you hear Danny Seraphin, you hear these guys in my playing because these are guys I listen to. Carl Albrecht for worship stuff. There's a certain way I play. Bill Maxwell, huge Bill Maxwell fan. I've been doing a bunch of Bill Maxwell things. Andre Crouch, Keith Green, Phil Driscoll. Those songs were all Bill Maxwell. I mean, I love the way Bill Maxwell plays drums. Bill Maxwell's one of my favorite drummers. If you don't know Bill Maxwell, go look him up. Favorite. He's an amazing drummer. He is so funky. I mean, I'm sure he reads music now, but I'm sure early on he wasn't as much the reader as the groove meister. He figured it out. He felt it. That's what makes the music so wonderful, is when you get people in a room and they're playing together. And that's how records were made all the way up, even through the 90s. Into the 2000s, you still had records being made that way, a lot of country. Today, we've gotten to this computer-based world where we chop crap up and put it together, and everything's on a grid, and we beat detective it to death, and we say, this is the part, learn the part. And you know what? You young guys, you cats got it together. You got your click together. You play the parts exactly the way. But I think the thing that sometimes you miss is the musical context, because you're not playing it in music. A lot of times you're playing parts because you're learning parts to play a certain way. And I think the older songs force you to play a different approach to it, because that's how they approached it. So that's how I grew up. So growing up that way, that changes a lot. Changes how I see music. So that's how I see music. But Ready Eddie, I gave it my best shot. I hope that answers that question. Next question comes from Baby Showers. This was Ain't Too Proud to Beg, Motown tune. Killer job. Got a quick question. I switched from Zildjian to Paiste. I'm very happy. I currently have a Paiste 2002 Big Beats and just purchased a 2002 15-inch sound edge hi-hats. I'm wondering how the 2002 crashes sound in comparison to the Big Beats. I'd like to get a ride and a couple of crashes to go with the 15s. I think the Big Beat sound is a little darker, a little thinner. And that's the difference between the Big Beat 2002s and the regular 2002s. They only make big sizes too. They go 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, and 24. That's the sizes. So you can't get 16 crashes. 2002 line have got 16-inch crashes, 17-inch crashes, 18, 19s, 20s, 22s. They're glassy, but they're not glassy like the Giant Beats. The Giant Beats are really nice. They're thin cymbals, and they've got like a glassiness to them that I really love. I love the Giant Beat sound. But I think the 2002's got a little more presence, a little more projection. I'll tell you that 18-inch crash, which is not up here. I've got my Caropes up here right now. I was doing something today. That 18-inch crash, you hit that, and that thing is a perfect weight, and it just cuts. Man, I could see that on a big stage just cutting through everything. It sounds so awesome in microphones. I hit it, and I go, wow. I hit my Giant Beat 20, same sound. You know, it's big, it's bold, it's in your face. You know, so the 2002s have got a presence. The Big Beats have got a little bit darker thing. I think they're more in the range of being a little darker because of the hammering, and they're a little bit thinner. But great cymbals. I got a 22-inch Big Beat. I love it. It pairs up very well with the 18 and the 16 crash. It pairs up very well with the Giant Beats, the 18 and the 20. So check my videos out. Listen to the sound. I think you'll dig it. And can't go wrong with 2002 15-inch sound edge hi-hats. Can't go wrong with it. Great choice. Thanks for Baby Showers. Thanks for the question. My next question comes from Mark Anderson. He said, "Hi Earl, can I ask you a question?" It was the butt end of the stick question. I think I answered that question with Drum Addict. So Mark Anderson, go back a little bit. Now your name's been told. But I did read your question, and I did answer your question with the butt end of the stick. So, and I've answered that question a bazillion times, so it'd be interesting if I always say it the same way. Kirky B. All right, here's another question. Sarcasm asked me a question. He said, do the pearl feet you talk about in Ask Earl Anything, do they fit on a 1980s Gretsch kit? And the answer to the question is yes. The feet I have on this, hold on a second, don't go anywhere. I'll show you what I'm talking about. Because I am talking about something. So these are the pearl feet. And they got a little gap in them, as you can see. So when you press down, it kind of floats on it. This is for my other floor tom. Anyhow, they fit on anything that's the Gretsch ones. They fit on, that goes on the diamond plate. I think if you had more of a fatter one, a hollowed out one, it may not work. But this is a solid piece of steel. So it works fine on this. It works fine on Ludwig. Old Slayer lenses it'll work on. Pearl, of course. So it's your typical, I don't know what size this is. It's not quite the big, thick size of this. It's a little bit thinner than that. But, yeah, that's it. So, check it out. Thank you, Sarcasm. I answered that question for you, too. I've got one more question. It comes from... Where'd it go? Comes from Jim Flies 2. Jim Flies 2 is a drummer I've been following him for a bunch of years. I guess he just started following me. His first question he ever asked on Ask Earl Anything. He said, "Hey Earl, I have not heard you say anything. Say where or how to submit a question for Ask Earl Anything." You can ask a question on any of my videos, and I may include it in Ask Earl Anything. Thank you, Jim. Here's the real question. So I will ask the question here. This was on Ask Earl Anything. I saw a short clip of Vinnie at Drummers for Jesus, a thing a few years back. Do you know if Vinnie confesses to being a Christian or what his testimony is? He doesn't really say much in the video I saw. I can't find any interviews. This may sound off base, but for me, drumming is third or fourth most important thing in life. First being Christ, then family, work and music. Drumming is only a means to some sanity, all in balance, if that is possible. Thanks, man. Love your channel. Well, thank you for loving my channel, Jim. I do know some of the story about Vinnie, and I'm going to share some of the story that I know. First off, my first impressions of Vinnie and watching Vinnie in a concert and at a Modern Drum Fest, I could have met Vinnie face to face in the 1988 Modern Drum Fest that my wife was now writing for the magazine, and we had backstage passes at Modern Drum Fest. But Vinnie seemed pretty unapproachable to me at that point in time in his life. Now, maybe it's just because he was the hotshot drummer or whatever. He may still be very unapproachable for all I don't know, because I don't know him. I have a couple people that I know that have done some work with him. And for him, I hear he's an extremely nice guy. He's an extremely thoughtful guy. He's an extremely intelligent guy. He's a deep thinking guy. Okay? But when I met him in 88, when I didn't meet him, but I saw him at Modern Drum Fest, he was really in a bad way. He was in a bad mood. He was having a tough day. I saw him really moaning about his equipment. It was really one of those gigs. The next time I would see Vinnie would be 1996. It was on a Sting tour at the Garden State Arts Center in New Jersey. And this was no difference. He was having problems with the monitors. He seemed visibly upset on stage because things weren't right. At one point, he pushed his China cymbal off the stage to get the monitor guys' attention. Like they weren't listening. He kept pointing at, because I can tell when the guys are having issues on stage because I'm a professional. I've been up on stage. And when things are going wrong, you're looking at the guy over here, the sound guys doing the monitors. You're going, hey, bring it down. Guitar player, bring him down. No, bring him up. Bring him up. And they're doing this. And you watch a concert sometime, you see some guy, you see the drummer doing this, or somebody else on stage, you know they're communicating with the side, especially big festivals. Big festivals are notorious for this because you're getting on stage and you really didn't get a sound check. So Vinnie was having issues, and at one point he was so riled up he smacked his China almost like he pushed it off, and they saw, and then they seemed to adjust some things. It was crazy. It was one of the craziest things I ever saw. The next time I would see Vinnie would be at the Modern Drum Fest. I think it was 2000. Not 99. I think it was my last Modern Drum Fest, and I think they did a video of it. I think it was 2000. I don't think they had a 99 video. So I was at 97, 98, 99, and 2000. I think the last 4 years of Modern Drum Fest I was at. And I saw some of my heroes. I saw Bernard Purdy. I saw Paul Lime. Eddie Byers was at one of them. Those were the highlights for me, seeing those guys, especially Bernard and Paul Lime. But the last one, Vinnie was at it. And this was the interesting one, because my friend Pat O'Donnell, I talk about a lot, he was with me, and we're sitting next to one another, and Vinnie's was the last thing to come out. He comes out last, and we were deciding if we're going to stick around for Vinnie, and we're saying, yeah, we got to stick around for Vinnie. What do you mean we're going to not stick around for Vinnie? So we're there talking, and we're waiting, and Vinnie comes out, and Vinnie has got this glow on his face that I never saw. I was like, holy crap, what happened to Vinnie? And then he starts thanking God for everything and everybody, and I'm so blessed, and I'm so blessed. And he was to the moon blessed. He would say at that, I have that DVD that you're talking about where you got that clip from, because I was a chapter leader for Drummers for Jesus in 2007 to 2010 in West Palm Beach. I know Carlos Spenson, who started the organization. We talked on the phone a bunch. And I have the 2004 Drummers for Jesus. I have the 2007 Drummers. I think I have all of them up to when they stopped making DVDs. I have all those Drummers for Jesus DVDs. But the one that Vinnie was on, Vinnie talked backstage about how Modern Drummer cut out all his Jesus talk at the Modern Drum Fest. So there's, they do these backstage interviews. And Vinnie was talking about Jesus, and they weren't having it on the Modern Drum Festival. They cut it out, and he was really upset about it. So I know that he's a professing Christian, and I know he loves Jesus, and I know he's a deep thinker. And I know something happened to make him have that conversion, but it was deep, and it was heavy. And he's played on a ton of Christian stuff. Check him out with Ron Canoli, just absolutely off the chain. Vinnie's playing with Ron Canoli. I know there's a lot of guys in LA, those session guys that were all kind of close, and they ministered to Vinnie in different ways. Abraham Laboriel. I've seen him play with Greg Matheson and Abraham Laboriel. Those guys are Christians. There's so many Christians in California in the studio thing out there. But yeah, Vinnie's got a walk. Now, I think his walk's a little bit more contemplative. He reads a lot of he reads Thomas Merton. My wife reads Thomas Merton, and that's some pretty deep stuff. Okay, and I think that's where Vinnie is. So Vinnie is but he seems like he's very quiet and he doesn't talk about it a lot. So he's probably not what I would call an evangelical Christian. I would call him a Christian, though. And I do think he has a walk. And I think in his playing, you can hear the joy of the Lord, sometimes. And I've seen that. But I'll never forget Modern Drum Festival where he came out. He was beaming for Christ. He was like screaming Jesus everywhere that day. And I was so stoked when I came home. I told my wife. I thought that was one of the coolest things, So I think Vinnie's got an incredible walk. That's his walk. But he's a quiet guy. He's not going to do it. And, truthfully, when you're in celebrity, I think exposing yourself and your beliefs too much doesn't help you, I don't think it helped Bob Dylan. You know what I mean? Bob Dylan had a conversion to Christ, and then he got out there on the stage. And, the church wrecks people sometimes. I don't think Jesus wrecks anybody, but the church has done some things to people, So, I think there's a lot of drummers that have a walk, and their walk is where their walk is. There's a lot of guys, a lot of great players have a walk with Jesus and have a walk with the Lord. So I think Vinnie's got some really a deep walk, just like Jim Keltner does. You'll hear Jim Keltner quote Bible verses every once. He had one in a Paiste ad for years, Psalm 150. Play on the loud sounding cymbals. That's the Psalm 150 is where you hear about the cymbals and the gongs and stuff. Pretty heavy stuff. But Keltner was the drummer on Bob Dylan's Saved tour, and the other one, Slow Train Coming. He was on that tour. when they toured for Slow Train Coming, they were writing Saved, and they did the next album. 3 albums that were done that were Christian, kind of. By the third one, he was starting to slip back into doing his other stuff. And I know Bob Dylan there's some kind of a thing there, but you can't know a person's walk, and you don't know what God's doing in their life, what he does. But Jim Keltner that was pretty deep. So, yeah, I think there's a lot of guys that have it. So, anyhow, I don't know if that helps you, Jim, but I'm pretty sure Vinny's got a walk. It's his walk, though. We all have to do our walk. And that's where I come from. I come from a place of sharing from my life, not ashamed of it. Done a lot of Christian music. I love the Lord. I want everybody to see the peace that comes with knowing the Lord. I mean, I would not have gotten through my son's death a year and a half ago. It was not for my walk with God being so many years and so much something to hold on to. My wife and I were talking about that this morning. So, anyhow, that's Ask Earl Anything. If you made it to the end, you got the last question. Thank you for watching. I always appreciate those of you who watch. Everybody have a great Valentine's Day, great Sunday. This will not be out on Valentine's Day. And I'll talk to you next time. If you have a question, ask a question in any of my videos. And thank you all for watching. Your questions make the show. If I don't have questions, I do not have a show. Till next time. Bye, guys.